All right, good morning. My name is John Pavloff. I'm a firefighter medic on USAR 34A, and we're here this morning to talk to you about a new toy that we have. It's called the Arizona Vortex multi-pod system. We're going to get into a description of that in just a moment, but initially I want to let you know where it's located on USAR 34A. It's located on the second compartment back. On the top, it consists of 4 different bags that we're going to go ahead and pull out, and we'll go from there. So just stand by for a moment. This system is composed of 1 backpack and then 3 additional, for lack of a better term, leg bags. These bags are pretty simple to identify. Really easy to set up. This is the entire system, not counting any of the rope systems that we have to apply to it. We'll get into that in a little bit. So what Paul's doing right now is we're just unbuckling the system. And essentially what this is it's a high point directional anchor. And what this allows us to do is to use it in a number of different situations where we need to get a high point at our point of exit, where we're going over the side, whether it's high angle or low angle. This system allows us to put it together and use it in a number of different ways. We're going to use in the most common way today to give us the ability to have a high point, which allows us to come off of the system and onto the system a lot more. So what we're going to talk about now are the different components of the system. The system is broken down into 4 bags. The first bag, bag 1 of 4, contains a lot of the hardware for the system. As Paul is opening it up, we're going to go ahead and show you what we have inside. It's important to remember exactly where this stuff goes back. Why is that important? Because that way we can account for it when we're doing our inventories at the end. So what Paul is opening up now would be the bipod head for this, and we also have a unipod head. What we're looking at here are the head parts of the system. Here and this is what we're using to secure the legs of the tripod or bipod setup. And then in the final compartment, we have the specialized pulleys that we use for the system, as well as all the pins. Real quick point on these pins. It's best to use one person to hold these pins and divvy them out. We do not have extras, so it's best when you're setting up the system to have one person holding on to those pins. We also have an instruction manual, which is located in this binder here. This manual has been laminated so it can be used in all types of weather, and it will break down the system to its components as well as directions on how to assemble and disassemble. All right, bag 2 of 4. In this bag, you have located the legs of the system. You'll see 3 bags. We have 3 sets of legs. These are all aluminum legs, so you want to be very careful when you're handling them. You don't want to drop them. They bend easily. The orange rope that you're seeing is a rope that we use as a guideline. You will have 2 of these ropes, 1 rope in bag 2 of 4, and then you will have another set of rope in bag 3 of 4. Yes. Now what you'll also see in this bag is a compartment for different types of feet. We have what they call an Omni flat foot, which are designed to be used on flat, hard surfaces, or you can use it on a flat, soft surface. But we also have another set of feet that we'll get into that you can use for unstable surfaces, gravel, soft dirt, stuff like that. You'll see here that in bag 3 of 4 that we only have 2 lower legs and 1 upper leg. And then finally in bag 4 of 4 we have 2 lower legs and 1 upper leg. Why is that? These are what is known as a raptor feet. These are the feet that we'd be using in on soft ground. Okay, so what we're going to do now is go over the assembly of the head system for this. It's composed of 2 parts. We have the A-frame head and we have the gin pole head. The A-frame is in blue, the gin pole is in orange. They are put together using 2 1/2-inch cotter pins. These cotter pin diameters are unique just to this head, so everything else will be 3/8. All right, now Paul's going to go ahead and attach the double pulley systems. There are 2 of them, each attached with a 1/2-inch cotter, with the 1/2-inch pin. All right, pretty simple. So now that we've got this together, we're going to go ahead and start assembling the legs. In some ways, you will see this a lot like a typical confined space tripod. This offers us a lot more latitude, but you will see the basic theory is the same. The lower legs are put together using the pin, and then the upper leg is secured with a pin as well. Now what Paul's going to be doing is inserting the upper leg into the A-frame assembly.
Right there. Double foot.
All right, so what we're going to be doing now is just attaching the foot to it. We have a couple of choices in feet. In this instance, we're going to be using the Omni flat foot, which is essentially a hinged foot that allows it to move a little bit. This is going to be typically used on hard surfaces such as concrete, hard packed dirt, stuff like that. All right, we've got one leg completed. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next leg. As you'll see, both of the legs on the A-frame system that they're setting up right now are of equal length. These can be changed later. We'll discuss that in some of the different setups we can do. But for purposes of this training, they will be the same length. It is important to note, though, that the silver upper leg has to be the part that goes into the A-frame head. No other part of the system can do that.
Okay.
All right, so now what they're going to be doing is finishing attaching the Omni flat foot to the bottom. And now what we're going to start working on is the third leg. This leg is different because it has 3 lower legs, so it's going to be longer. And the purpose of this is because the head system is hinged, it's going to allow us to adjust the overall height once we get it put up in the air. All right, so they're attaching all 3 of the lower legs with the pins. Paul is inserting the upper leg, which is going to be secured. And now Paul is inserting that third leg into the gin pole head, securing that with cotter pins or with a plug pin as well. Now all we need to do is throw on the last foot. All right, so now the system is ready to be raised up and placed onto its feet. Now, one good thing to remember before raising the system up is go ahead and attach your guidelines. You'll see that the guidelines get attached to the orange gin pole head with carabiners. These carabiners and the guideline ropes are always kept attached and they're placed inside the bag. Okay, ready to raise up? All right, so now we're going to go ahead and raise the system up. Now you're starting to see this whole thing come together here. All right, so now that we have the system stood up, there's a couple of things we need to overcome, right? We need to attach our mainline safety line into the system. The way we're going to have to do that is we're going to have to bring the system back down, which is very simple. Once we get it down to a workable height, we're going to go ahead and disengage our pulleys. These are unique pulleys to the manufacturer, and what they allow us to do is to insert the rope into the system without having to disconnect the pulley from the system. So we're going to go ahead and rig our main line and safety line into these pulleys and click them back in. Alright, once we have our main line and safety line secured into the system, what do we need to do now? Well, we need to figure out exactly where we're going to place this system. So as Captain Riley is raising the system back up, we need to determine where our edge is going to be. Once we've determined exactly where that edge is going to be, we're going to place the 2 front feet of this system at that edge. Once we have the system set at the edge, we know where we want it, we're going to go ahead and secure our hobble line. This hobble line is just a pre-cut piece of lifeline that we use to secure all 3 legs. Captain Riley is making sure to run this hobble line underneath all of the guidelines as well as the main line and safety line. And we're going to go ahead and secure that there with a couple of half hitches. Alright, so now we know we're in a position where we're going to put the system into service. What we need to do now is to secure our guidelines. You're going to be pulling your guidelines off, securing them to anchors that you have set up. In this case, Engineer Gonzalez is going to be using an inline figure 8, making essentially a modified trucker safety. Captain Riley is doing the same thing on his side. And the system will be secured with a couple of half hitches on the backside. Alright, now they're just double checking to make sure that the hobble line is tight. They're now going to be adjusting their main line and safety line just to keep everything out of the system so we can get a good idea of exactly how we want to put the system in.
Alright, so one of the important things to remember with the Vortex system is the forces that are being applied to it. And this is just one example of many ways to set it up. We'll have different videos at a later time to show you the different ways. But one of the critical things here is making sure that the forces in this configuration are basically parallel with our rear leg on this device, so that when we apply force here, it transfers from the pulleys down to the middle of the tripod here. As we move right or left, those forces are going to change, and it could potentially pull it over. We'll get into more explanation as to considerations, but the key thing here for this particular setup, how we have it configured, is we want to make sure that our forces are parallel to that back leg.
Alright, thank you for taking the time watching the Arizona Vortex training video. Remember that this is just the basics on this system. It can be used in a multitude of different ways, and we'll be developing more and more of that on the video later. If you have any questions, please feel free to refer to any of the USAR members or the Arizona Vortex training manual.